Well, big welcome, everybody, to the Lighthouse space. I'm Michael Romano. I'm the Chief Business Officer over at Lightspeed, along with our great partners at Axios. We have a great panel set up for you today with a lot of people that are a hell of a lot smarter than me, so I won't take up too much time. But Lightspeed's early stage global venture firm. We've been in business for 25 years, focusing primarily on enterprise, infrastructure, and a little thing called AI for the last decade. We've invested over $2.5 billion in that space over the last 12 years, over across 100 different companies, and kind of goes from seed to Series A all the way up to Series F and beyond. A lot's changing in the ecosystem, and we've got some really brilliant minds to duke it out and talk about what we're seeing in the broader opportunity set, where there are immediate opportunities, where there are long-term opportunities, and where are we avoiding altogether. So without further ado, I'll introduce Guru Shahal and Jim, the co-founder and CEO of Axios. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Guru. I'm Jim Vandehei. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Axios. Really thrilled to be doing this with Lightspeed. We had a great dinner the other night. We got to spend a lot of time catching up, lots to talk about in the AI space. Everybody here, everybody at Davos kind of has a frame through which they do their work when thinking about AI. You've been a builder, you've been a doer, you've been a spotter, you've been a funder. Like, talk to us just about the frame before we even get into the investment side. You think about AI, how?
Yeah, if you were, first of all, thank you for having us, and thank you, Michael, for the introduction. You know, Lightspeed, just taking a step back to share with you a little bit of where we're coming from. We're a $30 billion asset manager. We operate globally across multiple sectors and multiple stages. So our insight comes from not just the founders that we're partnering with, but with all the enterprises and buying centers that those founders are selling into. So if you were here in Davos last year, there was still considerable amount of excitement around AI, but that's what we think of as phase one of AI deployment, which is about 2.5 years ago, ChatGPT comes out, lights up everyone's imagination on fire. There's this magical ability that you can build applications on top of. Founders started furiously building with it. Lots of funding went in. And over the last 2 years, we've seen some really, frankly, magical products in productivity, in automation, and other fields. Now we're moving into what we think of as phase two of this deployment, which is really capitalizing on the benefits of this in a day-to-day sense at the enterprise level as well as in consumer level. That's really what's most exciting. And one thing that's very apparent where we sit is that the size and speed of this AI wave is faster than anything we've seen in the past. Lightspeed, we've been around 25 years. We cut our teeth in the internet wave, invested behind mobile, invested behind cloud, and as Michael pointed out, we've been investing behind AI for the last 10, 12 years. The size of this wave supersedes the size of the internet, mobile, and cloud waves combined, and here's really why. Of course, AI will reconfigure the $900+ billion spend on enterprise software. That's a given. What is more exciting is AI enables technology for the first time to access the services market. That's a $3 to $4 trillion market that so far has not really meaningfully been touched by technology. And so the size of this wave is much larger. And to share with you the speed, we've never seen revenue growth like this. If you look at NVIDIA circa 2020, that's about a $10 billion top line. By 2024, it's $60 billion top line. We've never seen growth like this in public markets. And it's not just that layer. Above that, our foundation models go back 3 years. Total foundation models spend maybe around $100 million or below. Today, just the top 300 foundation models are doing $6 to $8 billion in the last 12 months. That's incredible. We've never seen anything like this. And now that's percolating all the way up into applications where we're seeing some of the fastest growing applications in technology history. Three of our fast growing application companies have gone from sub 10 million in top line to over 250 million in top line in the last 18 to 24 months. Again, spectacular growth. So that's really what's exciting. Real world deployments, real spend, real value creation.
A lot of hype, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of fear, right, around AI. It does feel like there's something in the water the last 3 months in terms of talking to the different companies and the advancements and sort of even blowing through their own expectations of where they'd be heading into 2025. You're in Anthropic. Talk about that. Like, you've got this lens into Anthropic, a massive company, building one of the core foundational models. Like, what have you learned? Why Anthropic?
It's such a privilege to partner with that team. one of the best teams in the business, amazing researchers. More importantly, what a mission. It's a very mission-oriented team that is just focused on building technology, not just for building technology's sake, but building it in a way that it serves humanity with the right safeguards, with the right guardrails, with the right level of explainability and interpretability as to why AI is doing what it's doing. So we partner with them early in their journey, and we've seen their execution. It's been spectacular. Today, if you look at the leading model that developers build on top of and enterprises build on top of, in spite of all the excitement in the market, it would surprise you if you look back for the last 3 or 4 quarters, there's been one model right at the top. It's Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which has been right at the top and the model of choice. So the execution has been great. And what we like, given our enterprise roots, is just the focus on how to build AI in a way that is consumable by enterprises. So we're very excited to be part of their journey. We're looking forward to building.
You and I were talking about kids and how you even think about AI in this next period. And most of the companies you're looking at would either be an AI company, AI adjacent, or maybe AI inspired or AI enabled for that next generation. How do you, like, everyone in this room cares about that? Like, how do you think about those different spaces that aren't necessarily just a foundational model, but the things that will flow from it?
So, venture capital is a business of finding where there's fast moving water and technical innovation, finding then the teams that are going to take advantage of that step function change in technology and address large markets. So as such, if you look at where we've been focused over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, it's primarily been AI. So almost 100% of what we do is in fast moving parts of the market, and that fast moving part of the market is AI today. So we invest across all 3 major tiers of AI. We invest at the infrastructure tier. That's where the partnerships with Anthropic and Mistral and other foundation model companies like Pika and Suno and skilled and embodied robotics comes in. We invest at the tooling layer in evaluations, observability, compliance, auditability, how to make sure that developers can build with these new tools. And we invest in amazing application companies like Glean, which is an enterprise search tool, a Bridge, which is completely changing how doctors and patients interact, Even Up, which is changing how legal firms do their work, and many, many others that are some of the fastest growing companies in our portfolio. So for us, it's not about are we investing in AI or what percentage do we invest in AI. For us at this point in the cycle, AI is just a detail. Right. Everything is impacted by AI. And in the same way that, about 10 years after the internet, we stopped talking about internet per se. And 5, 6, 7 years after mobile, we stopped talking about mobile. And 5, 6, 7 years after cloud, we stopped. In the same way, AI is just everything is going to be built with AI. So, we don't track it as AI, non-AI. Almost everything we do is impacted by AI today. You
and I had a fun conversation about risk, and that part of your job is to be a risk taker. One of the things I think everyone in the room thinks about when they're thinking about either their own company or potential investments is just at what point can these models just go and reproduce the companies that you might be funding or founding, or that we might be funding or founding? How do you think about that? How do you think about that dimension of risk at this moment?
It's a good question. So risk is measured across various dimensions, right? So the kind of risk we think about is what is the market opportunity, and how will this founding team execute to that market opportunity? Will they be able to capture this entire market opportunity or not? Which is a different kind of risk than what you're talking about. When it comes to evaluating that risk, that really depends on, as Lightspeed, are we partnering with the absolute best teams in the ecosystem that are executing or not? What you're talking about is a different kind of risk, which is the risk of change. Our core belief, and maybe we are red-pilled on AI, but our core belief is that the pace of innovation in AI will continue to accelerate. That has been the case over the last 4 or 5 years. It will continue to be the case. There's more excitement, more funding, more innovation in the space in the last 12 months than the preceding 12, and there'll be more in the next 12 months. And so the question we ask ourselves is, as enterprises and as broader society absorbs this change, what do we need to do within companies and broadly in society to do that in a healthy and safe way? And what opportunities does that further open up, right? And then we can go find founders who are executing to that opportunity. So in change, our business relies on change. So in change, there's opportunity. We actually view it from a positive lens. Faster AI evolves, the more change is required, the more founders we can back that are then executing to where the puck is moving.
You've been in the game for a while. Is it getting easier or harder to find good founders?
Oh my God. Let me share some stats with you. So Lightspeed is about 25 years old. When we got our start, there were about 1,000 venture capital firms managing about $200 billion total. Today, 25 years later, there's about 10,000 venture capital firms managing over $2 trillion. That's a 10x increase in the last 25 years. So yes, it's getting harder. But in some sense, it's also getting easier. We've built an amazing platform over the last 25 years. We've earned the right and the trust of being able to partner with some great founders. Just to give you an example, last year, one of the very few technology IPOs was a cybersecurity company called Rubrik. We were the first check writers. We were the largest investor in Rubrik, and we invested across their entire 10, 12-year journey into the public markets. That kind of trust you have to earn, and Lightspeed as a platform has been able to earn over the last 25 years. So, our job is both harder, but also easier. There's more innovation. There's more founders. We have a great platform. So in that sense, we're better positioned than ever to execute to this new wave.
And then we could wrap on this. When you think about those founders, the difficulty in finding them, the realization that there's so much more competition for it, anything that you're picking up on, like who wants to become a founder now? Like, are you seeing more women, or is it older? Someone was telling me recently it's getting harder and harder to find very, very young founders compared to maybe a decade ago, whereas you're seeing people maybe a little bit later in life wanting to be founders. Or anything that you're picking up as a pattern?
I don't think there's a pattern to this. I'll tell you the two things that are truisms. The one truism of the venture capital business is the moment there's a pattern, arbitrage is gone, which means it's no longer a pattern.
Right.
So we try and stay away from patterns. What we look for is what we think of as founder market fit. Is this founder best positioned to execute to this market? Perhaps it's a consumer application that sells into teenagers. God knows I don't know anything about that market.
Yeah.
But perhaps it's a semiconductor company that's going to sell to other systems companies that will build great data centers. God knows I know a lot about that market.
Right.
And so it really depends on how much experience the founder has in that space, where are they coming from, do they have a unique insight, do they have the ability to execute to that insight. The one thing that hasn't changed in our business in 25 years is the founders who are successful have unique insights. They know what they're talking about. They've thought deeply about the business they want to build, and they execute like hell. They really are intense at every day, one step in front of the other. It's like that note that famously Elon Musk sent out to the Twitter leadership when he acquired Twitter or X. Said, "What have you gotten done last week?" And most founders we work with exhibit that propensity to just execute relentlessly.
Love it. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We will turn it over to Dan Primack, who's the smartest truth-telling reporter in this space and a good friend. Go, Dan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. Davos, Bill, come on up. I want to introduce, my name is Dan Primack, business editor at Axios, and this is Bill Ford, chairman and CEO of General Atlantic.
Great. Hey,
Thanks
Dan,
for
good to
coming.
see you.
So,
Thanks for having me.
Bill, let's start here. There's been so much talk just over the last couple of days in Davos about the AI cycle, and we're kind of in year 3 of this AI cycle. Is it an AI hype cycle or just an AI tech cycle?
Well, let's just step back for a moment, and this is the 5th big tech cycle of my career. I think about the PC cycle of the 80s, the internet cycle of the 90s, the mobile cycle of the zeros, and then the cloud cycle of the 2010s, and now we have AI, which might be the biggest of all of them. And the first thing to think about is that these cycles play out over decades and not years. And so the opportunity that's going to be created from AI for investors and users is going to be over the long term. But like all of those things, there's a lot of enthusiasm early on. And there's, which I think leads to, people may call it a hype cycle or whatever, but valuations get pushed up to reflect the enthusiasm, what's happening. And I think that's happening now. A lot of capital has flowed in, again, because the long-term potential is very, very real. So in some ways, it's a treacherous time for investors because...
Is it more treacherous? Because when you talk about, you're right, there's been past cycles, but the quantum of capital that's being invested in some of these companies dwarfs anything we've seen ever in the private markets.
Absolutely, and there's 3 or 4 concerns about it. One is that the amount of capital that's being invested. It's very hard to pick winners and losers right now. And the thing that's different about this cycle versus the internet cycle is that the incumbents have a huge advantage because of the capital intensity of what has to be built. Number one, the ability to harness engineering talent. You can't do this with 3 engineers. You need a heck of a lot more than that. And the availability of data. So you start with the big guys having a tremendous edge. So if you're backing an attacker, like a venture capital firm would do, or a growth equity firm like General Atlantic, you've got to assess what is the impact of the big incumbents. I mean, whether it's Google or Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. I believe they have a big advantage. So I think we have to wait a bit. I think we're going to see some application companies come that will build on the infrastructure that's getting laid down now, and will be good investments. But you sort of need to be active but be patient at the same time.
I was curious to pick up on something you said at the beginning. You said this may be, of those 5 shifts from your career, 5 big tech shifts in your career, this might be the most significant. Do you think this is going to be the most significant?
I do, actually. I think it has the ability to more profoundly impact more industries. You think about healthcare, educations, 2 industries that have been hard to change through technology. I think AI has the ability to do that. And so I think it could be the most profound.
One thing that General Electric said, growth equity firm often invest in later stage private companies. Obviously, you have a lot of capital under management. You have not yet done one of these foundational LLM, OpenAI, Anthropic sorts of deals. Why not?
We have done one, actually,
Which
called
one did you do?
Runway.
Okay.
Runway, which is basically doing an LLM for the creative industries, where they're trying to help advertising firms and creative departments internally build presentations, ad campaigns through a creatively oriented or vertical LLM. So we are doing a bit, but we haven't gone into the big ones. I think, again, it goes back to what I was saying before: capital intensity, valuation, and wanting to really have a better understanding of how do they fit vis-a-vis the big guys who are all coming at this in such a large way.
You, I am told, on your investment committee now have an AI on your investment committee. Is that correct?
We have a non-voting member of our 5-person investment committee. She's the 6th member. We call her Ada. And what she's done is look at 45 years of investment history, investment memos, deals we did, how they turned out, financial models, incorporating all that information. And think of it as a private LLM. I mean, we're using Llama as our third-party open source platform, but trying to use all that data to actually vote on our investments. We vote out all of our investments at our investment committee, and we asked Ada to vote as well, even though it's not an official vote.
Has Ada ever disagreed with the human voters?
Yes.
That's interesting. When that
Not a lot. Not a
has
lot.
Ada disagreed with you?
I don't know if she's disagreed with me, actually.
We're now learning what
that's
Ada
a very good
trains on,
question.
aren't we?
It's a very good question, actually. But there's a human
Okay, let me put
there's
it
a
this
human
way.
factor in investing that Ada can't take into account.
If Ada disagreed with you, what would that? I guess
What would it look like?
What would it look like? But also, B, for you, would you sit there and go, "Wait a minute, maybe I'm wrong," as opposed to if one of your partners did, to be like, "No, I know he's wrong."
No, I think all 5 of us take it seriously. What Ada, and here's the thing: what Ada might do. Ada would say, when I look at your history, when I look at external data, I don't see margin expansion that's in the investment memo. I don't see margins going from 5% to 25% on that time frame, in that industry, in that structure. So I don't really believe it to the extent you guys are. Now, we might be saying, yeah, but this entrepreneur is special, and I think they can do something, and the business may pivot to a different direction. Ada can't take that into account yet. It doesn't have the interaction with the individual. We can still do that. So when we differ, it's her saying, I don't like the market size relative to valuation. I don't like the margin expansion story. And so I'm flashing caution to you. And a lot of times we've hit those points. And I'd say 80, 90% of the time we're voting the same way. But there's a couple of times you say that human factor and what makes entrepreneurs special. We just heard it in the conversation before about what they can do. You've got to factor that into your decision making.
Could you see in 10 years Ada having a vote, an actual vote?
Yeah, I could actually.
And you think LPs would be good? How would LPs, do you think, react to that, to finding out that they're in part funding, not funding, but they're investing in an algorithm?
Well, they want good decisions. I mean, at the end of the day, they want performance. And if I'd be the first to say, if Ada can do a better.
Do they get to cut their fees because now?
No way. No, come on. Not that Dan, don't go there. That's bad. But if we can make better decisions, right? Because of Ada, they're happy, but they can't cut their fees. No, we don't want to do that.
Let me actually ask about LP. Let me go into something else a little. Actually, let me stick on one AI thing, and then we've got Chuck Robbins after this. I'm going to ask him too. Big announcement last night coming out of Washington about this $500 billion investment into U.S. data centers. I'm wondering, do you? When you think of that, A, what do you think that means for the startup environment? And B, do you think it's real or do you think it's an announcement? In other words, it's real work to build these things. It's not just flipping on an app. There's brick and mortar here.
I think the way to look at all of these announcements, including this very important one from last night, is that I think if you look at the large tech companies, put Oracle in the mix now, and SoftBank obviously has terrific insight and expertise. I think they're convinced this is real, that this AI transformation we're talking about is a fundamental change. It will rewrite technology, rewrite business and society to some level. And even though we might not have all the evidence yet, we've got to invest for the future now, and we've got to make that bet. And so you see people, the large incumbents, saying, we're going to put down large investments on the anticipation that this is going to be there. And yesterday was a great example of that.
And you guys, General Electric has investments on the data center side,
Yep.
on the infrastructure side. Do you feel you're now competing with the federal government on this?
I don't know if we're competing, but we have a digital infrastructure business.
Yeah.
We're doing it more outside the U.S. where we have real strength, and we're building data centers, digital infrastructure, and we're in conversations with all the large hyperscalers who want the capacity, and they're saying to us we're tripling the size of a data center business we have in Malaysia, for example, because ByteDance is saying to us we want more capacity for what they're doing in both their traditional TikTok business but also AI. And so we're going to participate in our own way, selectively, but we're not going to try. Going head to head with the big guys is probably not a formula for success for us.
I said I want to talk about LPs. Let me ask: the exit environment for private equity and for venture capital growth equity over the last couple of years has been sluggish, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of both M&A and IPOs, and we talked about this a bit downstairs. So on the M&A side, there's been this argument that DOJ and FTC scared all the big guys off from making acquisitions. I get that. Why was the IPO market so slow when the public equity market was so strong?
I think you asked that question, and it's a great one, and it's a conundrum. But I really do think that this sense of overregulation from the SEC, even if it wasn't specifically targeted at the IPO market, caused entrepreneurs to hesitate about going public. And if you think about it, and we were talking about this, there's a lot of private capital available for companies to stay private longer. A lot of CEOs of private companies got comfortable with private ownership and saying, why do I want to subject myself to the rigors of the public market if I can wait a little bit longer? And they were getting and we were talking about, well, not direct, the signals towards crypto, towards market structure coming out of the SEC was quite negative towards the private sector and quite negative towards markets. And it made it easy for companies, I think, to say, let's just wait and see. And so we had the three of the worst IPO years on record for the last 3 years. Now, we have 26 companies in our pipeline who are actively getting ready to go public. And again, as we were talking about briefly,
Do you believe they are all really, or do you believe some of the CEOs saying, "Oh, GA says we should be. Let's tell them we're getting ready to go public"?
Well, I think there's a gentle hand on their back from a lot of private equity firms saying, we need to return capital to our investors. This is a partnership, and work with us on this. But I really think I've thought a lot about this, and I think it really is a triple win, the IPO market, because number one, it allows companies to raise capital. They do need to raise capital. Yes, they can do it privately, but they can also do it publicly. Second, it gives a chance for us to return capital to our investors. And what I love about the public market is people can make different decisions. Some can hold their investment, some can sell their investment. And the last thing is I think there's a real point about the public investors in the best growth companies. I mean, think of the public and being invested in Apple over the years, Amazon over the years, Google over the years, right?
All of which, of course, went public much younger than most of the companies that you're talking about, those 26, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. I mean, these are going to be much higher market caps at the time of the IPO than those companies were. But again, the public wants to participate in these stories. And I think this, it's a triple win if we actually get an IPO market moving again.
How much, you've been in this market for a while. How much of you're right, there's been a lot of private capital available. Obviously, certain founders don't want to go public. How much of this is almost to blame to the VC growth equity market in the sense of maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you guys would have pushed a lot harder. Your reputation among founders, I don't mean GAs specifically, but the industries, was a lot harsher. Like, wow, they make us do things. I think of the old example when Sequoia Capital made Zappos sell to Amazon, and they didn't want to, and Tony didn't want to, and Mike Moritz's response was basically, that's fine, I can find another CEO. And we have the ability to do that. Did you guys become so founder-friendly that it's actually hurt you?
Well, I think in general, the industry, it was more competitive. There was more capital. And that probably pushed the industry to be a bit more founder friendly in general, and I think also being a little bit more tolerant and saying, sure, you want to stay private a couple more years, we have capital for you, or you can find it from somebody else. I think that did happen, but I also like to remind the CEOs, while it's hard, there's a discipline of being a public company, and when we talk about getting our companies ready to go public, you think about building great governance on the board, you think about financial controls and reporting, you get better as a result of being prepared to go public and being a public company. But so I think we're encouraging them, saying, look, you're ready, you're at a scale, you're at a level of predictability where you should consider an IPO.
At World Economic Forum last year, General Atlantic announced a huge acquisition. You guys announced that you were buying Actis. I believe that was during this week last year.
Exactly.
Are you planning another? Could we see another major General Atlantic acquisition this year?
Well, I think you never say never, but I think we've got our hands full of what we have. We added Actis, which added digital infrastructure. We had a great comfort with them because we do a lot of investing outside the U.S. in places like now the Middle East, India, Southeast Asia, Latin America. They were very strong in those geographies. We had a comfort level with those geographies, so it lined up well. And we saw where the puck was going a bit on digital infrastructure. And these guys were good they were strong in energy transition, building renewable resources. We know how important power is going to be to the whole equation. They're good at power. And second, they were good at digital infrastructure, towers and data centers. Adding that into our mix, we thought was a real synergy, so we did it.
When you talk international, obviously GA has made, and we'll talk about ByteDance in a minute, has made investments in Chinese companies. A lot of U.S. VC firms that did that have kind of cleaved off their arms, in part because there was an executive order which determined or was going to stop certain sorts of investments, or at least risked certain investments. Are you still comfortable? Is General Atlantic comfortable investing in Chinese tech companies?
Yeah, well, we've been on the ground in China for 25 years. We've got a great team, and we've invested at Meituan, Alibaba, ByteDance. We've had a wonderful record in the tech sector, and we're still going to remain active there. Now, we have to be cognizant of a few things. More areas are off limits for investment from both the Chinese government perspective and U.S. government. So a lot of parts of the tech sector that we would normally like to engage with, where there's terrific entrepreneurship innovation, we won't have access to. So we'll be less active there just because the opportunity set got shrunk from what's available to us. But I think it's a mistake to write off the second biggest economy in the world. We know the level of innovation that's still happening in China. So we're going to still be active, but we have to realize the opportunity set's going to be more limited.
So let me ask TikTok ByteDance. Obviously, everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks. The law, the so-called ban law or the divestment law, passed 6 months ago, more than that, 7-8 months ago in the U.S. Why were there no conversations by ByteDance about divesting over the last 8 months? Why did it get to this boiling point? It seems like everybody just kept kicking the can until boom.
Well, one of the problems was we really did not have, the Biden administration really wasn't engaging with us on a real dialogue, because they were the ones to basically actually execute the law. And
although Congress didn't really the law doesn't give the executive all that much wiggle room. I mean, Trump arguably has broken the law by doing what he's done with the EO.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think that they were in charge of enforcing the law and working with us, and we were trying to get clarity. What is a qualified divestiture? What is a change of control? And we weren't getting the level of interaction with them, so it got pushed right to the end of the line here. And we were grateful for President Trump to intervene and basically say, wait a minute, 170 million people use this application every day.
Trump's the guy who started the ban process 4 years ago, right? Same guy, right?
That would be true. That would be true. It is the same guy who's now a big TikTok fan.
Yes.
But I think he did see. I mean, to be fair to President Trump, he did see 170 million people using the system. He saw a lot of creators, a lot of e-commerce happening on the system, and said it would be a mistake for the U.S., which I firmly believe, for TikTok to be not available to U.S. users. And now we've got 75 days. Now it is a short period of time to figure out how can we conform with the law, meet the national security concerns of the United States, but keep TikTok available to the users.
Do you believe the Chinese that if a qualified offer came and it was a good deal and it comported with the law and it all worked, that ByteDance would be allowed to participate in that deal?
I think there's a lot of solutions short of a divestiture that actually can.
I mean, a partial divestiture, because that's what it is. It's basically the quote Chinese ownership has to come under a certain threshold, 20% threshold.
But don't forget, if you go up to ByteDance for a minute, 60% of ByteDance is owned by global investors.
Right, understood.
It is not a Chinese company.
Which is why it's got to get under 20% Chinese, correct?
Yeah. Well, I think there's ways to achieve that. And again, it's a little bit premature to talk about. We're waiting for Secretary Besson to be confirmed. He'll assume responsibility for CFIUS. Remember, we were still the whole crucible of how we were negotiating with the government was because of a CFIUS investigation of it, and so we'll be engaged. I think President Trump will deputize, Secretary Besant to be our partner in this, and we'll get on with it like as soon as maybe even as early as the end of the week, in terms of negotiating what might work. And of course, you're right in saying, Dan, that it's a bilateral conversation, well, trilateral. It involves the Chinese government, the U.S. government, and the company and the board. All have to be involved in this conversation.
Do you believe a deal will get done?
Yes.
You do believe a deal will get done?
Yeah.
That's
I
interesting.
think it's in everybody's interest to get something done.
That's interesting. Let me ask about something else that happened. One of the other executive orders that came 2 days ago now, which was on offshore wind power. It's not a massive part of GA's portfolio, but you guys do have an offshore wind company in Europe.
We do.
Not in the United States. I'm curious, when you think about that, what are your thoughts about that executive order, given that you guys do invest in this area? You have a climate area, and as you said, the energy needs for all these data centers, which is all the AI, it's just continuing to grow.
Yeah, most of what Actis does on the energy transition renewable side is outside the U.S., so we are less directly subject to that. But it does apply, as you said, Dan, overall. I mean, our view is that the energy transition is going to continue. Like, while we might be using more carbon-based energy longer than a lot of people might like, we still need more energy. I mean, AI just added to the demand. And if you go to the emerging markets, their need for energy is even more acute than it is in the developed market. Right. And so our ability to put any kind of capacity in place, renewable capacity, is going to be absorbed. And of course, the more we can power data centers with renewables, the better. Yep. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do. But I think the demand is there. I'm not that worried about it.
Is that, if you're thinking kind of big how much does that impact you guys when you're making new investments right now, in the sense of when you watch a new administration come in and you see kind of the changing politics, how does that impact what you guys are thinking about new investments, not existing portfolio companies and potential exits, but what you're going into next?
It has a meaningful impact. I mean, right now we're about innovation and entrepreneurship around the world, and I think it's alive and well. We're finding great companies to invest in, and we take a long-term view. I mean, these are typically hold our investments 5 to 10 years. So I mean, that's going to outlive many political cycles. So we think about that. But I mean, but look, we're sitting here and trying to fully understand the Trump policy agenda. It's going to have implications. We think on the good news front, I think from a regulatory point of view, you're going to see a rollback. That's going to help M&A. That's going to help the IPO market. That's important to us. But I think we're still in the assessment period of saying, what does Trump? What are the Trump administration? What are their objectives going to mean for us as investors? I think it'll be net good, but we don't know yet.
I'm curious, 2 final questions for you. One, just to go back to AI, how we started this, to circle this around. Private equity has always been known as an apprenticeship business. Lots of people start very young there to do basic modeling, and they move up the stack and hopefully someday become you. If AI starts replacing a bunch of those lower level jobs, is there going to be someone to be CEO of General Atlantic in 20 years?
I hope not, but
you hope not.
Well, not AI. Well, I would just say this. I think like a lot of these inflection points in technology, people I think become in some way over obsessed with displacement. But if you think about it, if we can replace 80% of the work that our associates and our vice presidents do that is somewhat drudgery, writing a first draft of investment memo, doing some of the model, if we can replace that, we move them to higher value added work. I mean, making more of the assessment of the entrepreneur, assessment of the market, assessment of the technology. Some of that can't be done by at least right now, by AI. So I think it will be in the mode of, yes, we're going to replace some form of the work that gets done in an investment process with AI, but there's be plenty of stuff to still do. Yeah. And so I think in a way it's net good. I mean, David Solomon said, I think this week, that 90% of the prospectus can be written by an AI, and then but the 10% that really tells the story is going to need human intervention.
I mentioned that to a Goldman banker here the other day, and I asked him the same fee question, and he wanted to get the hell away from that.
I do too.
Final quick question for you. How often do you get emails about people upset about their cars? Do they think you're the other Bill Ford?
No, I love it how often I get. I think I was actually with a meeting last week with a number of CEOs who were meeting with President Trump, and one of the CEOs of a tech company who I will not name came up to me and said, "We're doing a lot of work with your car company now. We're really excited about it." I said, "Different Bill Ford, no dividends, no cars. Sorry," that's happened. But there is, it's a longer story, but there's also the Ford modeling company run by Bill Ford, Eileen Ford's son. That's a better person to be confused with, actually. But anyway, I'm happy with this version, I guess.
Bill, thank you so much
Great,
for joining
thanks, Dan.
Appreciate
Thank you very much.
And now I want to let people walk through.
See you, brother.
Now I want to welcome up Chuck Robbins. When he comes, is able to get there. We'll let people come in. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'll put on a tie for you. I'm not sure what Ford's problem is.
We can if people want it. We've got a couple seats that have come through. We'll let you guys.
Bill
come
needs
in.
to show more respect around here for these people.
So this is Chuck Robbins, obviously CEO of Cisco, chairman of the Business Roundtable. Chuck, actually, let me start with something kind of where I ended with Bill. You started your career in sales. You were a salesperson and when you think of Cisco and you think kind of AI and labor, the way you came up, is someone still going to be able to come up the way you came up?
I started my career writing code, just to be clear.
Well, that's even worse almost right
I
now.
know. Well, no, it's better. Well, if you take that piece of it, I think a lot of that's going to get, if you can get 90% of the code written and then you have smart people assessing it, tweaking it, and getting it right,
Yeah.
you're just going to be more productive. I mean, you're going to get a lot more stuff built, and the pace of technology development is going to just pick up meaningfully. On the sales front, look, at the end of the day, the relationships are most important. So I think that's going to be, I think a salesperson is going to use AI in a very big way, and they're going to be super successful as a result of it. But we all know, I mean, it's all about relationships
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
You've said that 2025 will be the year of the enterprise application. What does that mean and why this
I
year?
have no idea. It just sounds good.
It did. That's why I wrote it down.
See?
Yeah.
See? I didn't expect to have a follow-up on it. I thought it was just going to stand on its own, and we're good. No, it's. I just think enterprises right now. We did a whole AI survey of all the enterprise customers, and we play deeply, obviously, in the enterprise and have for a long time. And you got this strange dichotomy where it's like 13% of the customers say that they feel like they know what they need to do with AI. 85% say I've got 18 months or less to figure it out. so there's a big gap, and so if you look at that tells you in the next 18 months there's going to be a lot of activity, and we just engage. We had a big launch last week that we can talk about, but these customers are just dying to learn more. We had we did an event in Palo Alto. We only had 110 people in the room. And we had 40 Fortune 100 companies sitting there because they wanted to just take it in. And I think that I think this year is where you're going to see some breakthrough applications.
When you talk with these clients for that, what do you say, 13%? For the ones who seem to already be using it, and do you have a sense of what's actually working as opposed to what's maybe not working?
I think there's a lot of interesting applications in healthcare that are being done today, like smaller hospitals taking advantage of data from larger hospitals so they can increase their cure rates. We're seeing some of that. We're seeing lots of analytics on manufacturing floors with cameras and data and intervening and predicting. Some of it's leveraging old AI and generative AI. But I will tell you the one thing that everybody's really worried about is they're worried about the security side and controlling this technology. And they don't know what to do. They just know it's a problem. And you know what to do?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I know what to do too. So we will. Do you mind if we have a conversation real quick? Get another chair.
Do you think we're one major security breach away from the AI hype cycle slowing down a little bit?
No.
Why not?
Because I think we've proven that we can get past things pretty quickly. I mean, think about it. I mean, the risks that we are willing to take with these devices in our hands, the Salt Typhoon stuff that's been reasonably well documented in the press about what's been going on. I just think people, if something happens, we'll figure out how to solve it and then we'll move on. But it's not going to slow us down.
Just for everybody here, in very almost layman's terms, explain what Cisco's role kind of in this AI revolution is.
So we are we're the connectivity layer first and foremost in the web scale space. So we're one of 3 providers who actually build the networking technology that sits beneath the GPUs, so all the clusters. So these things communicate with each other. We have to actually make that happen. And there are literally 3 companies doing it. We design our own silicon to actually build the products that they need. We're running parallel, staggered development cycles on silicon now. We used to have like 3-year cycles. Now we're developing the next generation before we even get the current one out of the fab, and so we're building that in the enterprise space. We're building some integrated tech. We're a little bit ahead, trying to anticipate what we think they're going to need. We're building integrated stacks of storage, GPUs, CPUs, and networking with security that has an orchestration layer to help enterprise deploy AI apps more rapidly. And then last week we had a launch of some pretty significant security technology around the space. So we're going to be very active in the security space. And then we're using it like everybody else is across our portfolio. We're looking at agentic AI right now and how we can sell network administrators, virtual network administrators sort of integrated in.
Does that mean when we see this data center building boom that you look at that and you see dollar signs in your eyes?
Yes.
A similar question to Bill. Do you think the money is getting ahead of the actual building? Because again, this is brick and mortar stuff that has to get built. I see SoftBank and Trump talk about $500 billion, and I think that's great, but I can't find a contractor to do something in my house. Who is going to do this work?
Neither can I, by the way.
Right.
It's a valid point. They're off working on data centers.
And rebuilding LA. So you're right. So, I mean, but a serious question to you. When you think about this, is the money getting ahead of the actual deployment of the money? The commitments?
Well,
of
the
money?
commitment of the money, but I think if you read the thing, it's $100 billion that's largely been already committed, and then there's a plan for the next $400 billion. So it's available, or they'll go get it, or whatever. So this is a.
Were you guys approached about being part of that?
No.
No.
I think if I just look at the performance we've had selling into the web scale space, and we have these large customers who are literally sitting across the table from me saying, "I will buy all you can sell me if you just increase your capacity." So I mean, I haven't been in that position, and Cisco hadn't been in that position in 25 years. We were in it once. And then the enterprise side, even the private data centers that we see right now, I think the last 6 quarters, our data center infrastructure networking business has been booming. And at a time, where we're coming off the 10-year cycle where everything's going to the cloud, no one's going to have private data centers anymore, which is absolutely untrue. And so it's a good time.
How do you personally, Chuck Robbins, how, if at all, do you use AI in your personal life? And when I say that, that can be your business life too, but not, deploying it throughout Cisco. I mean, for your actual job or your personal life.
Not a great deal right now, honestly. I've tried some of the tools, and they're gonna become really good over time. I find that some of the tools, if you use them to write notes to people, you don't get the proper relationship tone because it doesn't understand how well I know that person or how we communicate to each other. So I see it and I go, they're never going to believe I wrote that. If David Solomon was mentioned earlier. Solomon and I are like really good buds. If I wrote him a note like that, he'd be like, "What's wrong with Chuck?" And so you find yourself rewriting them, which I could do it in the same amount of time. And I'm not trashing them. They're on a cycle. They're on a life cycle. They're going to be great. And the flip side is like summarizing stuff like that. I do summaries. I'm like, well, that's cool. What if it's wrong? I better go read it and make sure before I respond. So I'm not quite there yet.
Do you think internally, do you have from your direct reports, do you ever get an email from them and think, he or she did not write this?
No, I don't.
Really?
No.
So they're doing better for them. You don't think they're using AI to send you notes? All right.
We don't have much relationship, so they just say,
Something else.
I don't get emails from my team.
Something else you said recently, maybe similar to the enterprise applications. This might be a bumper sticker more than anything else, but let me ask. You
picked up on that quick.
Yeah, you talked about how kind of the return to work is leading to some new customer behavior. Do you believe return to office is a better way to say it than return to work? Do you believe that's a real secular shift, or do you think that's something that's going to kind of ebb and flow?
I think it's a secular shift. I think that, look, I'm on Bill and I. The reason Bill and I know each other so well, we're on BlackRock's board, and the financial services industry is definitively making this move. We've made it, but even before.
When you say we've made it, what's the Cisco policy?
We've encouraged people to get back in the office, but in some cases we had a lot of small sales offices we closed.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, we had 15% of our employees that worked full-time from home already. So we had already embraced this to a certain extent. And our teams are largely massively distributed. They're all over the place. So you tell somebody to go to the office, they go to the office and they get on video calls with their colleagues in another office. So it's every industry is a little different. But I think look, the people who are going to move forward in their career, I think, are going to be those who are interacting with their peers more effectively and exposing the great work that they're doing, which in many cases requires you to be in face to face.
When your most recent earnings came out, one of the things you said was that you think that the economy had just finally gotten through the supply chain shock.
Well, that was us actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that the call it the period of normalization post supply chain shock is that at risk with the Trump tariffs with the potential of tariffs coming in?
No.
In other words, are we in a short little honeymoon window and it's about to go away again?
No, I think the supply chain stuff was largely driven by the influx of dollars. I mean, the flooding of money into the United States and around the world. All the pandemic money that was put in the system. tariffs could have the opposite effect. I mean, my fear on tariffs is inflation.
Yeah.
And if we don't get inflation down, then we're not going to lower rates, which means the cost to serve the U.S. debt is very high. I mean, I know you all know this, but it's a staggering comment to say that we spend more servicing our debt than we do on our military in the United States. And so I think all of that has to be, and I think President Trump understands the real risk of inflation. And
Do you think he believes, though, that tariffs lead to inflation, which is the conventional economic
I
wisdom?
do think that.
You do think he believes that?
I
Then
do.
why would he talk about? I mean, he didn't do it, but the thinking was. I know CEOs got pretty happy when NEO didn't include an investigation of tariffs rather than actual tariffs. If he believes that, why the kind of pro-tariff stance?
Well, I think there's always trade-offs, right? There are things that he believes that he's trying to accomplish through the use of tariffs, and there's just because you realize that it might be inflationary doesn't mean you don't do them,
Yeah.
because the other issue may be more important.
Got it.
I think that's the balance that they'll have to make.
You're obviously chair of the Business Roundtable. CEO confidence is up, continuously up, but particularly since the election.
Yep.
What do you see as the primary reason post November 5th that CEO confidence is up?
Business-friendly administration.
Which means what, practically speaking? I mean, is it basically taxes?
Well, it's taxes. I mean, we have a lot of tax work to do this year, obviously, and it's going to be difficult because of what I was talking about earlier with the deficit and everything that we have to balance. And in 2017, every Republican was pretty much on board with lower corporate tax rates.
Yeah.
Today, that probably isn't exactly true. So it's
Well, lower from the lower, you mean?
well, yeah, or holding them even
Yeah.
where they are now. But so we got to get tax done this year, because if we do nothing, there's a $4 trillion tax increase on U.S. citizens. So I mean, it's a meaningful problem, and a lot of the stuff expires, which is why.
Yeah.
So that's
Not the corporate one. The corporate one.
corporate one does not, but it's part of it's got to be part of the discussion, because everything's gonna be on the table. So you've got that. You got the second is just regulation. I mean, there's going to be lower regulation, particularly financial services industry is going to be very excited about that. They already are. You can hear them. You've got permitting reform that's going to happen in light of the energy policy that the administration has, which will allow people to move faster. You're probably going to have obviously, I think David Solomon also talked about I met with another major financial institution last night who said the activity on the M&A front and the IPO markets and all is just starting to crank up. So that's all goodness.
Can I actually ask about that? Cisco, big company, big tech company. Have there been potential acquisitions over the last couple of years that you guys have looked at a bit and said, you know what, it's not even worth really going down the road because the antitrust risk is not worth our time?
We did the largest deal in our history during the Biden administration, $28 billion.
So do you think were the other tech companies wrong?
And we got it done. It closed 8 months earlier than we thought it would.
So do you feel your peers got it wrong?
I think there's other issues. I think there are sometimes legitimate antitrust concerns. So we look at companies and we do an assessment of the antitrust issues that we may face, and if we think it's going to drag on for 15 to 18 months, sometimes that'll hurt your business worse than just not doing it. So we've made decisions not to pursue things, because sometimes when you make an acquisition, it makes a statement about what you believe about your current portfolio. If you're trying to augment, or you think somebody's got something slightly better, so all you're doing is telling your customer, mine's not quite as good as theirs, so I want theirs. And so for 18 months, you're sitting there with customers saying, I mean, look at, honestly, HP and Juniper right now.
Yeah.
They have overlapping parts of their portfolio, and even though it's not a big deal, if you think about the fact there's really 3 major Wi-Fi players in the world. It's us, HPE, and Juniper. And so there's a legitimate overlap issue, and they are feeling it in the customer base right now.
Is this your pitch to get that deal?
No.
No.
I wanted to continue to be analyzed for another 18 months.
Fair.
You're welcome, guys.
So you don't feel that, despite what your the guy you talked to yesterday, you don't feel that for Cisco at least, the change of administration is going to have a major impact on the M&A side for you guys, make you more active than you would have been otherwise?
Not for us, but I think, but for the broader industry, business community, I think it will.
Can I ask? Actually, first, have you, since the election,
When you say "Can I ask," you don't wait for me to say yes or no.
It's a bad tick. It's kind of like saying the enterprise application, then putting it on a
Bumper sticker.
Cisco makes most of its money from bumper stickers. Most people don't
We
know
do.
that.
We
It's
do.
a small. It's in a footnote on the earnings. Have you spoken to the president since the election?
No. Oh yes, no. No.
No.
Before, but not.
If you did, what would be your message? What would be your most self-serving message to him, instead what you would like him to do?
I would never have a self-serving message for President Trump.
You're no longer want to be CEO of an American public company? I didn't know that's news.
That's not the way to approach the administration.
Actually, that's an interesting question. You obviously were both CEO and Business Roundtable during the first Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
What is the piece of advice you would give to other CEOs dealing with the Trump administration for the first time?
Do lots of listening, and make sure you're balancing your best interest with the country's best interest, because that's what he cares about.
You personally, both through Cisco and also through Business Roundtable, have this kind of long-standing commitment to DEI. There's even a DEI page on Cisco website. What is your thought about other big companies right now who've been really running away from it, even scrubbing their websites?
Yeah, it's a very complicated discussion right now, and I believe obviously that consumer companies have a whole different set of issues that they're contemplating. I said in an interview last week, or that was published I think yesterday, I think the pendulum swings wide in both directions, and for me it's for us it's about finding the equilibrium, right? You cannot argue with the fact that a diverse workforce is better. There's just too much business value, and I don't even mean gender, I don't mean nationality, I just mean diverse backgrounds. However that shows up in the room when we're trying to solve a problem, it's better. It's just better. And creating inclusive environments where people feel comfortable and safe and everything, that's good. That's good. So I just think I think the issue is it's being discussed like it's a single one issue discussion, and you either believe it or you don't. And in reality, it's made up of 150 different things, and maybe 7 of them got a little out of hand. But the core reasons that you have a diverse workforce are still there from a business perspective, and that's what I'm focused on.
Do you believe the pendulum, if not, will swing all the way back to maybe where it was a couple years ago? Do you think that middle ground, the kind of the way you're talking about it, do you believe that will become conventional wisdom again? Because it doesn't seem to be at the moment.
I think it will. I think it will. Because I think those 6 or 7 things are going to get solved, and then you're going to be left with common sense.
Final question for you. You are a UNC grad. Are we happy about Bill Belichick being the coach of your football team?
Yeah. I thought you were going to talk about basketball.
No, I was not. My father's a fan.
I think I woke up and we lost again last night. Did we? Somebody said?
Yeah, I believe you did. Yeah.
To Wake Forest, for God's sake.
With
all due respect to the Wake grads, I've already had my moment. I actually got to spend some time with him recently when they introduced him at halftime, Belichick, and I think, look, college sports is a lot like the NFL now, and I think his sales pitch is pretty compelling. Hey kid, you want to get to the NFL? I know how to go. I know the NFL. Come play for me. So, and you rebuild a team every year. It's a lot different than the NFL. At least in the NFL, you have long-term contracts where people have to. So
you think you're going to be going to a playoff game next year?
A
college football playoff game?
Oh, well. I mean, I might be going to a game. The better question is whether North Carolina will be there.
Fair enough. Chuck, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.